international cooperation is certainly crucial in cybercrime. There is not a single crime that is committed nowadays that doesn't imply the need to use electronic evidence. It could be even a murder or a burglary or anything else, but still investigators could be needing to check a message that has been exchanged from the suspect with his friends, for example, and this message might represent electronic evidence. So the focus that we are giving on cybercrime extends to criminal justice action as such on all possible crimes. And this is why international cooperation on retrieving electronic evidence is so essential. United Nations has started a process to negotiate and finalize a treaty on cybercrime that could help investigators worldwide to cooperate with each other. And this process has begun in 2019 formally, and is about to be finalized this year. At least this is all what we know. So my first question is for Claudio, who is the Vice Chairman of the UN Ad-Hoc Committee that has been established to negotiate this treaty. Claudio, could you provide an overview of where we stand with these negotiations and what has been achieved so far?
Okay, thank you, Matteo, and buongiorno to the audience. Okay, well, basically the story behind this, maybe it's interesting to put it into context because this is something that has been being discussed for many years now. I think for the past at least 15 years, there has been a discussion on how is best to work or to find solutions for cybercrime problems. And there's maybe, I don't know if you'll hear later or heard about it yesterday, there's one particular instrument that has, even though it's from a regional organization like the Council of Europe, it's global in nature, which is the Budapest Convention, which the Dominican Republic is a party to. But there has been arguments for years, at least I remember from the group of experts on cybercrime of the UN from 2013, an argument that there's a need for a global instrument that it's free, that has free access to it. So there needs to be an instrument in the UN level. There was a proposal by the Russian Federation, a draft. Again, that's been around for almost, that I've seen it 10, 11 years. So finally, there was no consensus on the need of that because many countries thought it would not be wise to invest a lot of time in reinventing the wheel, but in improving what we had already in place. In any case, there was this UN General Assembly resolution in December of 2019 deciding that an ad hoc committee would be established in order to draft this convention. Because of COVID, we could not start the work in 2020, so we started working in 2021 with the aim of having it finalized by the end of the 78th session of the Assembly General, which ends in September of this year. There was 6 substantive, well, the resolution says that we would hold at least 6 substantive sessions between New York and Vienna. with a concluding session that would happen this year. We started this concluding session in January, end of January of this year, but we could not find consensus in time on some issues, so that session was suspended. It's going to be resumed in 29th of July of this year, and there we will hopefully finalize it. Basically, there's the convention, the draft convention has in total, we have 67 articles, of which we have already agreement on 19 and partial agreement on 30 and no agreement whatsoever on 18 of those. So what are the elements of the convention? One, let's say the most challenging elements of the convention is one, the scope of the convention. There's a large group of member states that prefers to focus on the core cybercrimes, cyber dependent crimes instead of adding also the cyber-enabled. And then there's also another group of countries that would prefer a broader approach to that. So where we're standing right now is likely to be covering only the cyber-dependent crimes plus the child sexual abuse material and dissemination of intimate images, plus the sharing of electronic evidence for serious crime. Again, there's still a debate on whether it should be on all crime or whether it should be on the other end, just for these core cybercrimes. So far, it seems, and I'm personally hoping that at least we're able to do the sharing of electronic evidence for serious crime, because at the end of the day, and putting on my practitioner hat, my background is law enforcement. Nowadays, probably at least 90%, if not more, of any investigation would potentially have a component of digital evidence attached to it. So it can be, just a regular murder. You can have, whatever, images coming from a surveillance camera. You can have a threatening message in email, or there's a lot of potential evidence. So from the practitioner perspective, it would be interesting to be able to achieve that. Obviously, the broader the scope, the stronger the safeguards needs to be. So, and that's another part of the debate that we're having, because the member states that want a broad scope and want to include in the criminalization chapter things like the traffic of drug trafficking and trafficking of people and trafficking of firearms and so on, and a lot of, let's say, traditional crimes. Those member states are also, they also do not want a lot of safeguards in place. There's one of the biggest divergences that we're having right now is the human right protection. So we need to make sure that this tool is not used to prosecute political crimes, political dissidents or religion-related persecution and so on. So we need to find this balance. We just had, I'm just coming from Vienna. We had this informal for the past 3 days, trying to bridge these gaps. We still have a long way to go between yesterday and July in order to find that balance, because the aim of the committee and the mandate of the Assembly General is to achieve this by consensus. There's a provision that in the resolution that establishes that if we are not able to reach consensus, which would be a decision by the Bureau that we have exhausted enough attempts at reaching that consensus, and basically what consensus means in multilateral arena is that we are all equally unhappy with whatever we achieve. But if we are not able to find that middle ground, to find that consensus, then the chair could call a vote. In that scenario, that vote would have to be decided by a 2/3 majority. We're trying to avoid that, because that would mean that we would start with a limited number of potential member states to the convention. There's 193 member states in the UN. So again, if the aim is having a universal and universally accessible instrument, the idea would be that we are able to achieve that instrument by consensus. Again, fortunately for at least 69, I think 70 now, of those 193 member states, we still have a tool like the Budapest Convention that allows us this cooperation. It's perhaps not ideal. It's being improved now with its second additional protocol, but we're able to do that. And if we were to have a joint investigation or a need for a request, let's say between Italy and Dominican Republic, we could perfectly do that with the tool. But then again, there's 123 other countries that we would need to cooperate, because obviously the one thing that the cyberspace lacks is borders. So we are used to the traditional physical jurisdictions, which for cyber don't apply in the same manner. So we're hoping, again, that we would be able to finalize this. If we do finalize it by the beginning of August, that would mean that it would probably be approved by the Assembly General by the end of 2024. And then, by the way, one of the debates also is the entry into force of the convention. There's a debate that goes all the way from 20 ratifications all the way to 70 ratifications in order for it to enter into force. So we would have to wait for those ratifications, which are not really simple. We've had the second additional protocol to the Budapest Convention for almost a year, I think now, and we still have, I think now, just recently, the third ratification. We need 5 for it to enter into force. So it's not a simple process. There's going to be also a conference of the state parties that will then be the operationalization of this. So basically, we're looking at a couple of years between now and when we can actually start using that new convention. So we would still need to make very good use of whatever tools we have right now. I don't know, Matteo, if I left anything out, but if there's anything else.
Thank you very much, Claudio. So a lengthy process, but collegial decisions and consensus approach, which will hopefully lead to a convention that will be a global tool, but there are still a number of open points, and a bit worrying that on 19 articles there is no consensus whatsoever. So this might also mean that this whole process could also lead to not producing this treaty. I mean, we will see what will happen. Thank you. But in the meantime, of course, cybercrime goes on, and so we had to work with what we have. At the moment, we have the Budapest Convention, which puts together a number of countries, 70 at the moment, including Italy, and of course, all European countries are parties to the Budapest Convention, all but Ireland. So what is the perspective from the European point of view? And this question is for Claudia. How would you see the scenario of cybercrime cooperation between criminal justice authorities from the EuroJust perspective?
Okay, now yes. Buongiorno. I would love to speak in Italian, but unfortunately my vocabulary is still quite short. For context on this question, perhaps for those of you who are not familiarized with EuroJust and what we do, I would first give you a brief overview that hopefully will be helpful in understanding how we can support international cooperation in cybercrime from a judicial perspective. So EuroJust is the European Agency for Criminal Justice Cooperation. It aims to facilitate cooperation between judicial authorities of, but not exclusively, European member states. From a judicial perspective, coordinates cross-border investigation, prosecutions, and we can also support judicial authorities even during the trial phase. And we also do our best to support judicial competent authorities to render their investigations and prosecutions more effective by facilitating the exchange of mutual legal assistance requests or the creation of joint investigation teams. I'm also here in a double hat, which is coordination of the European Judicial Cybercrime Network, and actually this type of practitioners networks, because this is a practitioners network, can also be a very important tool in the facilitation of the cooperation between judicial authorities. Basically, the GCN is a network of essentially judicial authorities with a few police authorities as well, who specialize in cybercrime investigations and in all matters related to technology with an impact in criminal justice. So basically, this network, which is hosted and supported by EuroJust, creates a network of trust between practitioners, a forum where colleagues from all EU member states, but also outside the EU, with Norway, Switzerland, Serbia, Japan, and the United States, can exchange ideas, perspectives on their cases that need to reach out to another jurisdiction and eventually escalate this investigation to a transnational level with the support of EuroJust. So what we have seen at EuroJust is something that I would believe you have been seen as well in your national jurisdiction, which is a constant growth in the numbers of cases involving cybercrime. Nowadays, when we talk about cybercrime, it can be, in a broad sense, anything. So we can be talking about pure cybercrime, which would be ransomware, attacks, or a type of crime with a strong cyber element, such as, for instance, dark markets. But we can also be talking about something as common, unfortunately, as domestic violence that is committed online, or a sexual crime with an online dimension. So this is something that we have observed from the European perspective. Last year alone, and with growing numbers every year, we supported almost 300 cases, more than 80 coordination meetings, and also coordination centers, which are spaces where judicial authorities can meet at EuroJust to discuss strategies, to discuss how to best execute mutual assistance requests, or in the case of coordination centers, when we have a transnational cross-border investigation, to, from a central point of perspective, overview the execution of an action day that is happening all over the world. And I've supported cases with multiple time zones, so we would be from The Hague able to view the execution of measures in jurisdictions that pass through the United States, Europe, and to Asia, and be able to solve questions that might arise during the execution of the requested measures in real time. So what we can actually for sure conclude, and I think this is also quite evident, that it is not possible to investigate cybercrime without international cooperation. And this is not only, of course, at the judicial level, it is for sure, as Vincent will detail, in the law enforcement level, and also needs to involve private partners, which is something that is quite new and a bit challenging for all of us. And this is true in pure cybercrime, but it can, as I mentioned, be needed in all sorts of crime, such as, for instance, fraud. So the needs for this, they are evolving as success stories and tools that will help us being more effective. I can mention a few with connection with real cases. So what we have supported through the years is numerous cases in cybercrime. One that is quite important is the case involving encrypted network, which is EncroChat. You might also have heard about Sky ECC. So basically these are encrypted networks, phones which have designed encryption and are used essentially for, or exclusively rather, for criminal activities. In the case of EncroChat, with the support of EuroJust and Europol, we were able to seize in total more than 900 million euros, more than 500 arrests, and an important tool to make this cooperation between judicial authorities effective was the use of joint investigation teams. Joint investigation teams are supported by an agreement, legal binding document between judicial authorities and also law enforcement who may be involved. It facilitates, and this is the big advantage, it facilitates the exchange of evidence without the use of legal instruments. So this allows for the direct exchange of evidence between jurisdiction jurisdictions, for close and direct contact between authorities in the scope of the investigation, and for a coordinated action in order to dismantle the criminal organization. Another quite relevant case, which addresses the topic of victim remediation across borders. So, as you know, in cybercrime, we often observe a division between jurisdictions in terms of location of victims, location of perpetrators, and location of proceeds of crimes. In the case of Emotet, unfortunately is still trying to rise, although it was taken down. It's a malware that allows for the introduction of other types of malware that may, for instance, steal banking credentials. The Emotet malware infected computers all over the world. It was investigated with the support of EuroJust and Europol, and allowed for authorities to push a solution to the infected computers that would allow us to retrieve the evidence, and in a posterior phase alert the victims that their computer was infected. This is quite challenging, the issue of victim remediation across borders, and also deals with the limits of our own jurisdiction. Yesterday, you also heard about the case of Lockerbit, which was the biggest ransomware organization in recent years, and it was possible to take it down recently, also with the support of EuroJust and Europol. Yesterday, you have heard how this worked from police perspective, but you need also to consider as legal professionals the other side of the coin, that this type of successful takedowns also needs coordination between judicial authorities in relation to what type of legal instruments need to be exchanged between competent authorities. And it was, in fact, crucial to have this type of coordination to obtain the detention of 2 suspects in Ukraine. Something quite important in terms of judicial cooperation is spontaneous exchange of information. And this is an instrument that is described in the Budapest Convention, Article 26, when, for instance, in the case of EncroChat, French and Dutch authorities have discovered and dismantled the EncroChat network. After the takedown, it was possible to send intelligence package to other affected jurisdictions, since EncroChat was also operating worldwide. This instrument is quite useful also when we are dealing with international investment fraud. If we take down a call center, let's say in Serbia, and this is a case we also supported, it was quite useful for Serbian authorities to send the evidence seized to other affected jurisdictions which had victims. So quite in a nutshell, this is how we can better fight cybercrime. Not always easy, or never easy, I would rather say, but we do have some tools in our pocket that have allowed us to be quite successful in very relevant cases.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting, and also to the point, your remark on the fact that when we are considering cybercrime operations, we have to have legal tools in place to exchange data from country to country between different jurisdictions. So it's not just a technical matter, but it's very relevant. Otherwise, you cannot secure criminals to justice if you don't have tools to cooperate internationally, which are not just technical but also legal. So in this respect, the action of the judicial authorities could be completed. And we talked about successful investigations, and of course when we talk about investigation we talk also about operational activities done by law enforcement agencies around the world. So we thought that when we talk about international cooperation, a very relevant point of view could be that of Interpol. Many of you might know Interpol from movies, but perhaps now that we have the opportunity, Vincent can tell us a bit more about Interpol, how it operates, and also if there are any good practice, good stories to share with the audience. So Vincent Danjean, please.
Thank you, Matteo. Yeah, it's better than movies, much better. We don't have planes, I'm afraid, not like in the movies, but it is good. I've been with Interpol for over 20 years now, so yeah, I have good stories. Not those I can share here, but no, I'm keeping them for my book. No, Interpol is a very big organization, and His Excellency Claudio covers the strategic, high-level political convention type things, and we are there in between to try and translate those conventions into the real world of investigators on their daily life. We are involved in those discussions, of course. One of the big roles of Interpol is to harmonize the work of the police and international cooperation. But we are also here to help the investigators on an ad hoc basis in their real-life investigations. Maybe one story I can share to illustrate this is I was sent to Djibouti for their very first cocaine trafficking case they had. They discovered a 1-ton container full of cocaine. And they arrested the suspect, but the suspect had a BlackBerry telephone, which they didn't know how to analyze, so they asked Interpol for support in doing this. So I went there, we seized the telephone, we analyzed the content with the help of the Dutch police, because this is how Interpol works, right? If we don't have the competence in one country, we ask other countries who could support this in a legal way within the frameworks that we have. And what can you do to help us? So in this case, in this instance, the Dutch dismantled the telephone, took the chips off, were able to read the contents, and we realized that the telephone is empty, apart from one big container of data, which we didn't know to decrypt, right? It was encrypted, and we couldn't get anything out. And this was the very first occurrence of the Sky ECC application, right? So we had not seen that before. And all of a sudden, we are faced with an encrypted application. We don't know how to analyze. We don't know how to read the contents. We only know that it's connected to some servers somewhere, and that's it. So that's one of the illustration of how Interpol works. We have to distinguish the project work, which is establishing on the long term the operation, and possibly some capacity building to try and explain the Budapest Convention, for instance, and how to work on cybercrime, how to investigate some specific technical difficulties. And there is the ad hoc operational support that we provide to the member countries. Now, Interpol, it's 196 member countries. So you can imagine the differences in capabilities as well as in the legal frameworks. So we need those international instruments such as the Budapest Convention and its second edition to really harmonize how we can work together, how we can exchange the data at international level. Now, I have to explain a little bit how Interpol is structured, and doing this I will also give you some more example of what services and instruments we offer to the member countries. Interpol, there is the General Secretariat. I am contracted with the General Secretariat, and as such, I'm an international civil servant. I am not a police officer per se. I have no mandate to conduct judicial operations. I'm just here to enable the coordination of the police officers from the countries we are serving. Or law enforcement, I should say. It's more than just police officers. We have a number of General Secretariat offices around the world, which we would call, in the case of Singapore, the Interpol Global Complex for Innovation. Majority of my team is in Singapore. I'm based in Lyon in the General Secretariat headquarters. We also have regional bureaus, and again, those regional bureaus are General Secretariat staff. Some of them are law enforcement officers, but they are seconded to the organization, like my colleague Claudia here is seconded to EuroJust from her administration. So when you are working within those regional bureaus or General Secretariat, you are seconded, you are not per se a judicial police officer anymore for the duration of your secondment. Then we have liaison offices, and those are really important to work with instances such as the UN. So we have a liaison office, big one in New York. We have liaison offices with the European Union, with the European Commission, with the Council of Europe, with AFRIPOL, and the other police regional instruments such as Europol, AFRIPOL, ASIANAPOL, AMERIPOL. Right. Now, the most important of Interpol is the actual member countries, and in each country there is a national central bureau, which is the kind of international cooperation hand of the police in that country, of the law enforcement in that country. Right, so that's for the people, I would say. For the instruments we have two big instruments which really enable the work of the police worldwide. And that's the databases and the criminal analytical files. And I will add a third one afterwards to complement what Claudia said in the importance of working with the private sector. But databases. Databases are open and automatic, I would say, services that we provide to all the member countries. There are 19 databases ranging from DNA all the way to nominals, which include all of the criminal files, the whereabouts of the criminals, what we know about them, etc., etc. 19 databases, and those are automatically available to all member countries. They can query, they can add data. Whatever is in those databases belongs to a country. It doesn't belong to Interpol General Secretariat. The source of the information is the owner of the information. If Argentina decides to share something, it remains their property. They can remove it anytime they want. They can update it, of course. They can limit the access to other countries if they want. Then there is the criminal analytical files. There's a lot more of criminal analytical files, but those are specific to maybe one case or maybe one specific domain of criminality. I'm thinking foreign fighters, for instance, today is a criminal analytical file. The difference with the database is the criminal analytical files are per country will. So we have criminal analytical files in which only 10 countries are participating, and the rest of the countries would not even know they exist. Right, so it's a very specific and different instrument. Country cannot contribute directly data to a criminal analytical file. The data has to go through an analyst within the General Secretariat for him to integrate the data. Now, they are very important because through those criminal analytical files, the analyst in the General Secretariat could see, by making his analysis on this data, that two countries are working actually on the same case, in which case he will inform both of the countries and they can get together and start an operation. Right, so for international cooperation, that's key and crucial to really identify and limit the number of cases and law enforcement investigating the same cases without knowing. That's really important. Deconfliction of police cases is really crucial nowadays. And the third one, which is very new for us, is working with the private sector. And that's happening in the Cybercrime Directorate in Singapore. They have the Cyber Fusion Center, which is like a command center specifically for cases involving ransomwares or any cybercrime. And within this Cyber Fusion Center, we have a project called Gateway. And this project is specifically authorized by all of the Interpol member countries through the General Assembly to receive data from private sector. So a private sector data would be typically a malware company who decides to share with us all of the infected IPs or the analysis on a specific malware. This data is poured down into a data lake, and we can do, well, we can use artificial intelligence, or we can use the historical data mining processes to try and make sense of all of this and serve the member countries with reports, with threat analysis, with intelligence reports, etc., etc. Now, another instrument which is very, very famous at Interpol is the notices, of course. I'm hoping you would have heard of the notices with the colors. We have different colors for different purposes. The red notices concern someone who is being wanted in a country for interrogation. He's either been convicted, or at least there is serious suspicion, and he or she needs to be detained to be heard about that case. There is a number of other colors. An interesting one I would mention is the orange notice, because the orange notice is an instrument to alert the member countries on a modus operandi or a new scam or a new kind of crime that is imminent threat to all of the member countries. My team and I, for instance, we published an orange notice on the very first instances of terrorism funding by the people through bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. So we did a little bit of study, online, open source, listing all of the cases of advertisement using cryptocurrencies to fund terrorism. We pulled all of this into an orange notice and pushed it to the member countries. And surely enough, we had cases in South Africa and in Dubai with arrests and convictions of people who were effectively pouring money down that drain. And finally, I would like to distinguish what I said at the beginning, which is the work, Ad-Hoc support work and project support work. We have established last year in March a new directorate in Interpol, which is called the Interpol Financial Crime and Anti-Corruption Unit. They are taking over from my team the mandate with cryptocurrencies, because it is related to financial crime, of course. And they have two interesting projects, operational projects, one called Victor and one called Rescue, which is specifically to fight pig butchering, which is a very big phenomenon right now, especially in the US. We are talking millions and millions of damage. I don't like the word pig butchering. By the way, I prefer to call it financial grooming, because it's more respectful for the victims. But basically, you have an interesting criminality in the sense of there is victims that are losing their money to the scam. But there are also victims within the scam organization itself, because the criminals are actually engaging in human trafficking and using those victims as the scam people in scam centers. So from a criminal perspective, it's really horrible, and well, we are involved in the rescue project on fighting this. Yeah, and one last point, of course, we provide a lot of guidance and capacity building in the countries. We work together with the Glacy Plus project on building the capacity of our member countries within darknet and cryptocurrencies, specifically in my team, but cybercrime in general, in investigation. And recently we published guides to illustrate what we do. We published guides on seizing cryptocurrencies and virtual assets, covering the non-fungible tokens and explaining really on a detailed basis how this is done technically as well as legally. And I will end my presentation for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Very interesting to listen also of the role that Interpol has in aggregating information coming also from the private sector and in supporting countries worldwide in their police operation. We are almost at the end of the session, so I would ask just a second round, just a second question that is for the three panelists. The same question, and I would ask you to keep your answer within 1 minute because we are almost done with the timing. Which is now we have assessed where we are now. What are the biggest challenges that you see from a political and legal point of view, from a judicial cooperation point of view, and from a police perspective? So, Claudio, please.
Thank you. Well, I think we have many challenges yet to overcome, and I think that there'll be many more challenges coming in the way. I think to put it in a nutshell is that we need tools that are effective but also efficient. I mean, we need to be able to get to that evidence fast, but we need to that evidence to be also admissible in my judicial process. So in this international cooperation arena, we need to be able to make that fluent. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, because we now have, even if we have the tools, we need those tools transposed and implemented in every member state, in every country. So that's one. And the other one is probably also emerging technologies. We need those tools to be able to keep up with the evolution of technology, with things now like the artificial intelligence challenge that we have right now, both for the good and for the bad. We have to keep up with how artificial intelligence tools are helping criminals, but how we can use also artificial intelligence tools to facilitate our investigations. So it's a complex scenario that is going to be an ever-going effort, I think.
Thank you. Of course, in 1 minute it's not easy to to summarize, but this is a very relevant point. Claudia, please.
So from our perspective, the biggest challenge is something that was mentioned yesterday by the representative of the Commission, which is the going dark challenge. So we are increasingly, and due to the evolution of technology, going dark on how to obtain evidence of a criminal action. This is due to encryption, so the evidence is there, but we cannot understand its content, or due to data retention issues, the evidence is not there anymore. And this is also something that is parallel with another big challenge, which is the speed of technology evolution versus the speed of existing laws. So we have been confronted with a very recent technological evolution, which is generative AI, and we are still struggling to get a regulation on it. So this, for me, are the biggest challenges.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Absolutely agreeable points. And
big challenge is to do this in 1 minute. As Claudia said, that was going to be my first one, but I'll switch a little bit. I think trust is the big challenge we have, but in both ways. The citizens have lost their trust in the institutions, and they want to encrypt everything to protect themselves. That's great. We need encryption to protect our privacy, that's no question. But we also need to make sure that the door is still open for law enforcement to protect the citizens. And we need to build that trust back into the citizens. And trust the other way around as well. As Claudia said, the technologies are evolving very fast. They're a great opportunity for law enforcement to be more efficient in what we do. Artificial intelligence is one example, but we don't understand what artificial intelligence is doing when it is producing intelligence for us. So I had this intelligence piece of information which I want to use in my investigation, fine. But when I get to court, I have to explain how I got there. Right? So we have to build this trust all the way to the legal systems that we can rely on information that's produced by the technology we have at hand. So we need to build this trust in both ways.
Thank you very much. So effective legal tools, keeping up with the technological evolution, and fostering trust among the practitioners that are dealing with cybercrime. Of course, 3 tasks that are worth a conference and a lot more time to be discussed, but at least this gives us some food for thought also for our actions, our daily actions. So I want to thank once again all the speakers for making their time to come to Rome and to share with us their experience and their knowledge. And I would close it here with an applause. Thank you. Ed è un piacere adesso lasciare il palco al prossimo moderatore della prossima sessione, l'amico Claudio De Paoli, direttore di BIP CyberSec.